All right, hey everybody, and welcome to the 90-minute mashup art challenge here.
We
Here
can't
we
hear
go.
you.
Hey everybody,
Ah, there we
welcome
go.
to the 90-minute art challenge. My name is Bobby Chu. I'm your host, and also we have on here the incredible, the awesome, my co-host Masei Seki. Yay! And the almighty, the all-powerful. Holy smokes, we got an amazing guest today, the one and only Eric Canete. Hey Eric. All
Good
right,
afternoon,
and
good morning.
yes, wherever you're from, wherever you are, Asia, good night, good evening, whatever. And yeah, I'd love to know where everybody's from. We'll give some, nice shout outs here. Where's everybody from? We love to know. It's always amazing to see how we kind of all gather together from all over the world. Now, for those of you that might be new to the 90-minute art challenge, what is the 90-minute art challenge? Well, it's this. Let me show you. Every week, Mondays and Thursdays, we do this 90-minute art challenge where if you go to tumblr.com and you search 90-minute art challenge, you can find the image that will be the subject for that particular challenge. This one is special because we got a special guest, right? And so this one is a mashup, which is, of course, inspired by the great and almighty Mindy Lee, who is a beast at this. And I believe, I don't know, this is a Bobby fact, so look into it. It might not be true, but she is the one that started this thing called the mashup, art mashup. I don't know if she coined it or whatever. Anyways, bunch of images, mash them together, create something inspired by these four images. It could be a bird creature with like harpy with the face of a human and jellyfish tentacles coming out and so on and so forth with a chrome looking egg. I don't know. You could do whatever you like.
Ooh, I should have done that.
That was my backup plan. That was totally just a plan. And we will be doing the exact same thing on Magma, on the Magma board, which you can use for free. And you could paint with up to 30 people at the same time. Now, when you're done your challenge, upload it to Instagram, hashtag it 90min art challenge so we can find it much easier. And every time we love to show some highlights. So I picked out some highlights, Eric and Masei. I picked out some highlights for us to kind of take a look at from previous challenges. 90 minutes, that's all you get. However, if you need more than 90 minutes, by all means, go for it. Wow, this person got a
Ooh, that's a
lot
cool
done.
one.
That's pretty cool.
Nice. I like the lighting.
Yeah, this was from previous illustration. I like that one because the person was like, I'm not used to environments. And I'm like, dang right. I'm not used to painting
Yeah,
landscapes either. That's
neither am I.
right. And that's the great thing about now, what is this one? As people might wonder. We haven't done this one yet, and it's not for today. It's because it's for tomorrow special. Uh,
Oh,
you know,
that's brilliant. That's
this whole
so
entire
good.
week is
In
just
90
full of.
minutes?
No, this
Yeah,
isn't a painting. This is a photo.
but we
Oh,
will do that
whew.
in 90 minutes.
I was gonna leave. I was gonna be like, I gotta go. I'm not.
Well, this one is photographed by the incredible Jingna. She has allowed us to use her photos to study from. And, this whole entire week has been special. Every single day has been something. And tomorrow is no less because we're going to be painting and drawing with the one and only Carla Ortiz from Marvel fame.
That's so
So
good.
that's intimidating. So, anyways, that's what that last one was. And then just a couple more to finish it off. This one was difficult. I remember that one. Jeez. That was the first time the Wizard Bunny gave us an actually a tough kind of score.
Yeah. Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, I feel like it depends if he's had a good meal or not, or if he comes hungry, he always gives us a really bad score or something. This one, look at the colors, right? Really
I like it.
nice, really nice. It's really pushed. It's awesome. All right. And the other thing is that we also have the Discord channel here. So if you go to, you see on the bottom of the screen, it says Discord, bit.ly/LBX Discord. You can join in with the Discord group, the Lightbox Expo Discord group, and paint along with us. All right. Why don't we get to, our video here, our painting session. Now, I love how, Eric, you are just laying back and going, all right, I'll let the kids kind of do their thing first. Is that what you're doing here?
No, it was me looking around because, Magma was relatively new to me, even though it is very intuitive. It was relatively new to me. And the first time that I had sort of understood its interface was just the day before or maybe 2 days previous. So it was me trying to recollect, how do I do this without, completely embarrassing myself? Because my fear, and I couldn't get over it until much, much later, was like I was going to do something and everything was going to disappear, including your guys's art. So I was like, don't touch any buttons that you're not sure wasn't going to mess anybody else up, So that was like just me orienting myself to like, okay, these are the safe buttons that I'm allowed to play with. Don't touch anything else. So yeah, so if you see me hesitate, it has a lot to do with like, don't mess this up for anyone.
That's really cool because you did a phenomenal job, and then and you didn't have as much time as we did. I learned a lot from just sketching beside you. I really like how you start off your sketch, and notice the movements of our cursors, Massey. They're like going through molasses compared to Eric.
Yeah, I did notice that too.
Is that true? I thought that was just a lag. I thought it was just like, oh, okay.
Well, also, as you were doing this, I was thinking about like commissions at Comic Cons and things like that.
Sure.
People with comic book backgrounds tend to have like some serious drawing chops. If they made it in comics, it's like they can go pretty lightning quick, especially if they are used to doing commissions at Comic Cons. Right. I know you probably don't do that kind of stuff if you ever were found at a Comic Con anymore, but you must have in the beginning, no?
Well, I still do the commissions from time to time. I get less these days, not because of desire, but obviously because of like, I don't know, like demand, like I'd love to do them, but I'm so out of the public eye when it comes to comic book shows that it's rare that somebody's just going to come up and be like, draw me some random character that I've never heard of,
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun because you do, if depending on how many you get per the weekend, because some shows are about 3 days, 2 days long, so you kind of really have to bracket off certain amount of time per piece. But once you get a good one that you're really super into, sometimes I had a tendency, I'll speak for myself, I had a tendency to go over that bracketed time all the time. But it did it did make you fast, It did make you like more concise about the decision making on the piece of art,
I don't like doing commissions at all.
No?
All. No. Well, like at conventions, hell no. Hell no.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I just don't, like, I feel bad. I'm like, I don't like this, like, I
You
don't
feel bad
right.
as in you're not enjoying yourself?
No, I don't.
Or like it's not 100% like
I don't like
effort
it
and-
being out there. I don't like
Yeah.
this piece of art that I only had a certain amount of time to do while talking to all these people, and it's like doing a couple of scratches in between the other stuff. Like if somebody buys a book or whatever, I'm gonna pack it up for them. And,
For sure.
So difficult. I don't know how you guys do it. And then the nightmare for me is seeing, sometimes I see friends where they're like, hey, you want to go to, such and such afterwards? Nah, I got to go straight to my hotel, do commissions,
Yeah. I think that's the most sobering part of the whole thing, is that if you're not careful about how many you take on, because you're simply looking at it as like, oh, I'd love to have that influx of money, you end up taking more than you need, and you sort of miss out on the weekend, like you sort of miss out on the after hours nuances of like hanging out and having a good dinner with people and connecting that way. You're
Yeah.
just stuck in I've been guilty of that. You're just stuck in the hotel room trying to get those commissions done.
Yeah.
Oh,
Man,
I know Helen Chen. She does like commissions prior to the convention. So
That's really smart.
when she's there, then the person can come and pick it up because it's already done. She took time, and then she can actually enjoy the convention. So I was like, that's pretty smart.
Yeah, I think that's very, very wise, as Helen tends to be.
she's such a beast. I don't know how she gets all her stuff done. It's awesome. Before we go any further, I want to give a big shout out to Guy from UK, Wenzart from France, and we also have Sophia from Costa Rica, and then we also have India, New York, and Austria, and Ohio, Vegas, Poland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Netherlands,
That is
Canada,
awesome.
Bulgaria, Brazil, Philippines, New York, Poland, Turkey, Moscow, Hungary, Cali, Montreal, blah, 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 blah. It keeps going on. Greece,
Everywhere.
and so on and so forth. Welcome. Also, if anybody has any questions, okay, Discord, go nuts, ask your questions. Feel free. Also, there's Slido, okay, for those of you that want to ask it, for some reason you don't want to come onto our Discord thing, then you could still go to slido.com and you can ask your questions there. Anybody in Discord have a question for our wonderful guest? Or anybody?
How many times did you start over on that piece, Bobby?
Me? Oh, let me tell you
I'm looking at it
something.
right now. I'm like, I think you've done that torso or versions of a silhouette
Ugh.
3 times. I've looked up 3 times. I'm like, oh, he started over again.
Well, you know what? I especially like this session because I fail so miserably.
Get out of here.
Yeah, and no, seriously, there's so many things I would have done differently with this. I was definitely not used to this. I don't know how Masei felt, but I was kind of looking forward to this so everybody can see me crash and burn. I was struggling, obviously, and starting the piece over and over and over again, it shows it. It didn't help that I was drawing right beside Eric, though. I don't want to put blame on you, but seeing that cursor go, I was just like, oh, maybe I should start over. I should do it more like him, and then I tightened up. Anyways.
This was a lot of fun. I thought, because again, I didn't know the nuances of the exercise. I thought like, okay, am I beholden to the overall intent of the reference material in as far as the figure was concerned? So I was trying to be like, I don't think I can draw that naturally, like the photo in the upper left hand corner. And as soon as I saw you guys go, actually no, it's just for texture and feel and reference. And you'll see me start over because I was like, oh, I don't have to do this pose. Thank goodness, because this is awkward. I'm gonna move. I'm gonna do something else.
Yeah, my backup. I really, I didn't want to do the woman character because I'm not as like comfortable drawing women as I am creatures, because that's what I generally do. But I just want to tackle the challenge. I was saying, okay, if things go bad, out comes a harpy with a little girl face on it.
It was a lot of information. I mean, you were talking about how this was primarily a Mindy Lee inspired concept, and I gotta say, I don't know how she does it. It's got to come from a place of like, oh, there I go, I started over. That's when I realized, like, oh, I'm not beholden to this pose. I'm gonna move.
Dang,
I'm gonna move forward with something else.
Shoot, imagine you got your idea right off the bat, how much you would have done by the end of this.
I get caught up in the rendering too, like I should have just committed to that pose. And I was saying like how I don't know how Mindy does it. It has to be because she has had so many repetitions and just sort of, it becomes sort of this automatic thing for her now at this point where she's just like honing in on certain portions of the image of the reference material and saying, I'm going to use that for this, I'm going to use that for this, and decision making, the succinct decision making that goes into that to just say, okay, now I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go and start rendering. I really admire her for being able to do that.
Yeah, and before everybody starts bugging me, I did ask her to join us as well.
That's awesome.
She politely declined. Yeah, so I tried.
She politely declined? We're
Yeah.
gonna have to lean on her a little bit more and be like, no,
Maybe
don't
after she
decline.
sees this.
I think it freaks
she'll
her
want
out,
to
like
join.
sketching live. You know, some people it just
Oh.
freaks them out and they don't want to do
Yeah.
it, which is fine.
It is part. Yeah, performing live is definitely tough
Yeah.
because you don't want to mess up at the same time.
I'll tell you this. Yeah, you're right. I think you're right. I think that's what I appreciate about the format that we're doing now, which is to do it X amount of time ahead of time, so that we can just be a little bit more liberated in us talking about the whole process, you know. And I think it goes it goes a long way in as far as like entertaining a group of people who are watching us sort of talk about our struggles during.
Yeah, and also this is only 90 minutes. You know, it's like it's pretty much it never happens when a client goes, "All right, this is the next thing that you got to do. Get me something in 90 minutes." Right?
Yeah.
So part of the challenge, a huge part of the challenge is the time restraint, which forces us to make very quick decisions and things like that. So I guess I'm just putting my excuses out there. I'm putting my excuses out there. Could have did way better if I had like double the time, but I didn't, so it's fine.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's Patricia. Do you guys do like sketches before, or you just jump in and think of the concept while doodling, or just wondering what your process is?
I had an idea and then I changed my idea and I hate my idea and then I have a new idea and yeah. I'm not the person to talk to about this one, I think.
I think normally for this one, I kind of didn't have the leisure to do a bunch of sketches to find a pose I like and like all this design. But normally I would do like a lot of sketches, a lot of exploration before I actually start like adding all the details to the clothes and like colors and all that.
Usually I do nothing. I just sit there and think for a while.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'll tell you the truth. I almost did the night before. I almost cheated and tried to do like a bunch of rough sketches on the side so I wouldn't have to think about it the day of. But then I realized, oh, that's super big time cheating, and it takes the fun out of that exercise. You know what I mean? Like at the end of 90 minutes, there's a lit powder keg, and you've got to like go, right? And I think part of the fun is coming up with something, being spontaneous enough to come up with something that's, you know, that's based off of the reference. So that I bit my like I did everything that I could to try and not cheat and just think of it day out, because again that's that little hurried up notion of it made it so much more fun.
Wow, that's awesome. You know, I appreciate it, but I can't help but to wonder. Wow, I wonder what the version would be like if you practiced a bunch of stuff first.
Right. I don't know.
Maybe one time I'll just finish the whole thing and put it in a layer mask and just just reveal it. Like, oh shoot, one timed everything, and he's painting with multiple colors at the same time somehow.
What brush is that?
Yeah, that's when you truly ask, what brush is that?
Yeah.
Right.
Also,
That's not even available on the.
Yeah.
That's not available on the app. That brush shouldn't exist.
I want to give a little context to Mindy Lee and her mashups and give some examples that she's done. Super cool.
Phenomenal.
Really, I love this one. How she takes the scooter and makes armor.
Yeah.
Right? And the umbrellas become the lower part. And then I'm not sure where the shoes kind of come in, but the lacing, I guess. The lacing up here. Super cool.
Yeah.
And big shouts out to her. You could follow her at Mindy Lee Doodles. And while we're on that, I also got up here the one and only Eric
Oh,
Canete, so you could check out his work as well.
So many things.
Gorgeous. Now, can you talk a little? Is this the project that you're working on? The
yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, I have a project that I'm working on between now and I believe it's a crowdfunded project, a 5-issue miniseries comic book that I'm going to be crowdfunding in Q3 of 2021, assuming the world doesn't end between now and then. But yeah, it's my love letter to all the superhero comics that I grew up with as a kid that made me want to become a professional artist. And I thought like now would be an ideal time to do it because I still believe that those things are fun. And I always ask myself like what kind of stuff and what kind of stuff is out there right now that I would want to participate in. And because I wasn't seeing too much of it, truth be told, I haven't been deeply entrenched in anything mainstream comic book related. So I thought to myself, like, hey, that I would love to be able to do that. And because those opportunities weren't coming from that avenue, I created it for myself. And there you go.
Oh, cool. This is so different. This one.
Oh yeah, yeah. These were all for covers for Marvel Comics, so I was allowed to quote unquote paint for a little bit, whereas everything else is sort of pen and ink and
I remember this one though. Dang.
That's awesome.
When you
I'm
were
all
kind of starting off, who were your main influences, you think?
oh, in the beginning it was
Yeah.
definitely comic book and animation related. I wanted to be at least in the circles that I ran in, much like everybody, I wanted to be Jim Lee so bad. Like I wanted to be that guy so badly in as far as the art is concerned because it was such at a high, unapproachable level, so exciting to look at. And then my mentor is a guy by the name of Peter Chung. Do you know Peter's work at all? Peter did
Uh,
Aeon Flux. He created
oh
Aeon and was
right,
an
yeah. Okay, that's old school.
so I,
Right on.
yeah,
That's awesome.
and I got an opportunity to work with him on Aeon, so I learned a ton from him. And then I remember, and so as I graduated from doing comic book centric stuff, I remember a good friend of mine looking at my work and saying, like, "Boy, you draw like the ugliest women." And I thought, like, "Oh, that feels bad." So instead, but what's great is that they give you that harsh criticism and give you a solution. And so they handed me, I don't know which version it was. It was a book. It was Iguana Bay by Claire Wendling, and I can't remember which version. But they said like, just copy this person. And so for a good portion of my, working career, which is embarrassing because I shouldn't have been working if I couldn't draw pretty things, but like, I just copied Claire. And from there I was like, oh, I get it. So there's like this, I hope to be this, as a student, this steady incline of getting better at my craft. So there you go. It's comic books like Mike Mignola and Peter Chung, and then eventually Claire Wendling.
That's cool. I feel like well, obviously it's all your own now, and I feel like if you threw in some watercolor action, like Sergio
Oh
Tapia
God,
on there, cuz
that is my nightmare to do watercolor because
oh
it's so
really?
out of control.
Yeah.
It's like I'm such a control freak, right? I would rather emulate watercolor than deal with watercolor. Like
Yeah.
I can't let it go, right? Like, oh, it starts to go this way, or the nature of it is because my wife paints with watercolor, right? And she's comfortable knowing that the the hue and or the value is going to change once it dries, right? And
Yeah,
I
it's easy
can't
for me
deal.
to just say, "Oh, you know what you should do? You should
Right. No, I
do
can't deal. I've
watercolor."
tried it, Bobby. Honest to God, I've tried my very best. But the moment that thing changes from the picture that is in my mind, I'm like, this sucks, and I have no patience for it. So I just get it off my desk and do something that's a little bit more in my control.
Yeah, I remember talking with this one amazing watercolor painter, and he was like, "You don't paint watercolor. You're more like the matador, and you're just trying to
Yeah.
tame the bull."
Oh my gosh.
you know, as things are happening, you're just trying to wrangle it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not a good wrangler, I guess.
I don't know if we answered this one before, but in Slido, CJ Rusotto says, is this thing gonna keep going after COVID is long gone? Um, yeah, that's the plan. I'm pretty set on it. And then
Yeah.
next, okay, awesome. I just assumed Massey's down. Didn't even
Bobby was like, I just signed you up, Massey.
Yeah, I'm just here because Bobby told me to. No. I love doing this every week.
This next one goes to Eric, and this one says,
Yeah.
what advice would you give to someone about doing comics when you can't draw for too long in the day? And by the way, Eric, you work for Riot now, right?
Yeah,
For a while.
as a concept artist for that company. Yep.
We just want to give some proper context. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, drawing comics.
Comics wise, when you don't have that much time, I think part of the answer is in the question, right? You sort of have to understand what your limitations are. But knowing what your limitations are, you optimize for the time that you have, right? I'm all about as much optimization as possible because I know, unlike my younger self that could just sit behind the table for 12, 15 hours a day, I actually have, the other version of my life, which is behind the door, on the other side of the door behind me. So I'm all about making sure that the time that I spend or the time that I have at the table is purely for the sake of doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing while I'm there. So if what you're saying is I only have so much time that's allowed to me because for whatever reason I can only draw for so long, then I say in the time that you have, draw as much or in the quality bar that you've set up for yourself for that comic book project, and then be at peace with the idea that that's as much time as I don't think that unless you're working for a company that needs you to turn something out on a monthly basis, to which case you sort of self-select out of that because your limitations prevent you from being, for the lack of a better term, employable in that space, right? But if it's a comic for yourself, there's no time limit. Do it at your own pace, right? And just knowing what your limitations are, set an achievable and check-boxable, forgive the term, check-boxable deadline.
Do you usually start in the middle of the comic, to do the finish, when you're starting to finish your comic?
That's a great question, man. For the first, like this one in specific, or even the one previous one I did with Mark Millar, I did 1 and 2 just so I can get a feel of the comic book, right? Just so I can get like, okay, this is how I'm going to draw it. These are the brushes. This is the themes. These are the layouts, just the feel. And then I jump to the last issue because I feel like once I get you know what I mean? Like once I get all of that inside of me where I kind of have an understanding, I am now primed to execute at the highest, version of whatever those things are. And so I jump at the last issue because I know that's going to be released last. So I'm like giving them the best version of myself. And then I go back to do issues previous.
Wow, that's completely backwards to what I was thinking because I would figure you get better and better as you go along. And so you do the kind of least important, least impactful parts first. So, I could kind of like cut my teeth and get used to it. And then when I'm good, then I go to the beginning and the end and make those extra awesome.
Huh. That's interesting. I think it's a different process for everybody, but I've recognized in myself that I have like this weird bell curve of peaking in as far as like energy, attitude, perspective, and desire, and then it starts to taper off a bit, So I, again, in the theme of optimization, I optimize that desire, that sort of like energy, and put it near the back because I know that's how that's the last experience you're gonna have with the series. And so
I think it's a motivation thing.
Wait, say again, Bobby?
Do you think it's a motivation kind of thing? Like you just don't get as excited than when you start it, right?
Yeah. No, that's another great point. When I used to storyboard for animation, one of my directors, my very good friend for years and years, his name is Sam Liu. He actually pointed it out to me, more like called it out to me. He was like, once you're, there in storyboarding, there's stages, right? There's the rough stage and then the cleanup stage, right? In between there, the director gets to come in and sort of like adds tweaks or shapes it and molds it. So as a whole, because as a storyboard artist, I only ever handle one portion of the script. So he goes in there and sort of like adds the necessary pieces to make the whole thing work as a collective between all the different storyboard artists working on that show. Like he's tracked me for over the years, realizing like the majority of your enthusiasm happens at the rough stage because it's the problem solving stage, right? I get a script, it's sitting in front of me, everything is in words. And so I'm sitting there going like, how do I make this as cinematic as possible? How do I engage the audience? What makes the most sense as far as like a compelling shot? Is this interesting? Is it comprehensive? Am I losing the narrative? Is the audience understanding what these characters' motivations are? What's this composition about? And as soon as I figure out all of that, that's like all the tumblers in a lock falling into place. Like, oh, that feels good. And now I've got to clean all that up. Like, oh, what a boring concept to draw a pretty picture once I've figured out how all of it works. Like the cleaning up to make it look like it's on model, and so that the overseas animation company knows exactly what it needs to look like, and all the scene descriptions that go on thereafter. I kind of like eye roll. So he called me out on that one time. He was like, you get really zoned in when all the hard work needs to get done, but you forget that this is also an integral, if not critical, portion of all of that work, is that because it goes beyond you and gets handed off like a baton down the line of the pre-production, that you need to put as much work into it. I'm like, oh, what a pain.
And just a reminder, everybody, half an hour has passed. We have a little bit shy of an hour to go on your 90-minute workout. And
so this is being you're broadcasting this in real time.
Oh yeah, we're live, and everybody in the Discord is also painting live. So
that's great.
Yeah, it's great.
That's great. I neglected to remember, for whatever reason, that there are also other artists painting along. So I want to apologize to them ahead of time, saying I'm sorry for my super shallow, super unplanned contribution. Look how far along Zaya is on her painting, man. Holy cow. This sat on my desk because I forgot to turn off the app or close the window. And there is this thing, and I don't want to ruin it for everybody, but there's this technique that Miss A does in the hair that I was like, oh, that's so brilliant. That was so good.
Thanks, Eric.
Can I just, while no one is looking, can I just cut and paste that over to
It's like modify it or transform it a bit.
Right. Like, I'm just gonna put that. Like, actually, I won't be that sneaky. I'll just be deliberately like, I like that hair. I'm just gonna move it.
I'm glad you like a piece of mine.
No,
I find that your process was really interesting. Is that kind of like the same way you feel for like single piece illustration, where there's like a certain part you're like really excited about, and then after a certain point you're just like, okay, like
100%.
Tedious, boring part.
Absolutely, because within the context of a commission, and I'm not diminishing the person who's commissioned it from me, the customer who asked it from me, like they'll ask me to do something like, I don't know, whatever favorite character that they may have, and I kind of already know. And this, I got myself into super low motivation years and years ago, where I got bored with doing commissions because of like how many more versions of insert whatever character name is in here, and I felt like I was stealing people's money when I'm not invested in the piece, right? So I stopped doing commissions for like maybe 2.5 years at conventions.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got back into it again, it's because it's in the spirit of what you were talking about, which is I don't look at the commission anymore as like, oh, draw another Spider-Man or draw another, superhero type character, which is typically what I get from people at conventions. I think of the commissions like, what have I not tried before? And oftentimes it's not the whole image, it's a portion of the image, Like I've never rendered X, right? Like I've never rendered, a bokeh effect on buildings before in the far background, which is totally unimportant to the main character. But I'm going to focus on that, right? And then like as soon as I render it, pass or fail, it doesn't really matter. I'm like, and then now I got to get back to the other piece, the rest of the piece. I'm like, how boring, like. I shift into a gear of like I've got to get this done. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm dismissing it, right? It's not like, oh, I'm just turning in, 50% of what I'm able to do craft wise. I still want to give them the best bang for their buck. But certainly in as far as like where my brain is completely honed in and turned on, it was in this small portion, right?
It is interesting hearing the things that you find difficult and the things that I find difficult myself. Hearing your difficulties, it's interesting, kind of seeing the different takes. And I think on that note, we should see what the difficulty of this challenge is from the great and almighty Wizard Bunny.
I would usually give this challenge a higher score of difficulty for you, Bobby. But since the great and powerful Eric Canete is here, I give this challenge a 6.
Ouch. 6. You would have given me a much higher score, but thanks to Eric, I guess. He's only given us a 6. Thanks, Eric. All right. Anybody in Discord have any questions or anything that, speak up. Come join the conversation.
I just want to say, Eric, his concept is looking amazing. The dress is so good.
Those look like wings coming out of her head, which is dope.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
But don't you think that's just like, if there were gears and 5th being the highest one, wings coming out of the head is like gear 2, like it's the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to concept. And I think when I see Mindy, what is so astounding about her interpretation is that it is a really fresh take on what could, like, we just looked at the one that was like a scooter and umbrella, and and you go like, that's really different, isn't it? She didn't go for the low hanging fruit as I did, right? So thank you. I appreciate the compliment. That's very kind. But I also think like I shifted into a gear of like, if there's a comfort wheelhouse, wings on head, I think is right in that wheelhouse. But thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Man, Eric, I've talked about low-hanging fruit. This fruit is on the ground. You see that bird? I was just painting a bird. I didn't even realize I just painted the bird. Jeez.
But I thought you were expanding on the theme of birds
I was
going into the Cape,
baby.
right?
Yeah. I don't know.
There you go.
Half of this, I'm like, did I paint that? I didn't even. I think I blanked it all out after just feeling like.
Today's a good reminder.
Yeah, feeling like, oh, this is such a failure, but it's all good. I love you know what? I appreciate all the failures even more because I stuck with it, and no matter how well it is, in the end, I stuck with it. When usually, sometimes you just give up and play PlayStation or something.
From this, I learned that like, man, my pose is so boring. And when I see Eric's with like the dynamic angle from like, under the link, I was like, if only just doing that little tweak would probably give such a different impact on my piece. So I think that's what I learned from, this session. And it was awesome.
And I'm realizing I'm like copying Massey. Look at that. She has the cape there.
I know, Bobby.
What am I doing?
Concept. No, I'm joking. Yours turns out a bit different from mine, so it's kind of neat to see like the different shapes of capes and like the different colors used. So
thanks.
I really appreciated our conversation as we were drawing too. I can't recollect exactly the points that we were making, but it made it so much more comfortable, and it made it so much more of a, like, short of an actual physical hangout at a coffee shop somewhere, it's as close as you could have gotten to that. So talking to the both of you was so much fun.
Well, we are very
And it made it less of a
entertaining.
task, you know. It made it less of like, oh, we're doing this for I don't know this, like, you know, I'll get hung up on the silliest things, like, oh, I know how to do this tech. I would make this lace slash ruffles look so good if I had my brush, but I've got to deal with, you know, the limitations of this program, you know, blah 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 blah. I would start thinking along those really poor, you know, brain negative pathing lines, you know. But instead, I was like, oh, I'm hanging out with friends and we're just talking, and this can be, I can just, you know, I'll just take into account that I'm drawing with a, you know, as a burned stick, you know, a stick with a burned end, and now I'm just doing the best I can given the limitations, and it made it so much more pleasurable.
Well, yeah,
So
you
thank you to the
just
both.
freaking learned the program a bit and then you jumped on. So it's pretty courageous of you.
That's what makes it fun. And it's like, okay, knowing the limitation, it's almost like this space of, because I don't know the program and because it's not necessarily in the comfort zone of doing this challenge. I got into the headspace of just like, I just need to forgive myself. This doesn't have to be the ultimate thing. It could just be. So I switched my brain to be like, hanging out with Bobby and Missy, and this is just us hanging out and chit chatting. And so it made the task, it just made the exercise so much. Almost became secondary.
That's good to hear. It was secondary,
Yeah.
you say. It was secondary. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I love that's one of the favorite things about this session, and generally all the sessions. It's like we get to hang out with friends and chat and just catch up, and you know, it's that stuff isn't streamed at all, and you know, we could just joke around and talk about whatever.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
that was fun.
Yeah,
The
I like
other
that.
thing was that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Missy.
Oh no, I like how you said it's kind of like a coffee shop where we're just hanging out,
Yeah.
doodling, drawing, painting.
Yeah, there was no longer any pressure about like, oh, I've got to be as creative as Mindy. I've got to keep up with, you know, you guys went directly to color, which to me it was just like, oh my God, I got to deal with color too. You know, I got to find a way to interpret form, mass, volume, and lighting into like color right away. Whereas typically I'm more comfortable with doing value first, you know? So everything
Mm-hmm.
is in gray. So the moment I saw you guys doing it, I'm like, well, I guess I'm doing this in color too. You know, like,
This really makes me like motivated to uh, learn how to draw women more comfortably, by the way. Yeah. Everybody
that's a
needs a
pretty
good
good tip.
failure to really push them sometimes, I think. Even
Yeah.
though I'm just saying nothing but negative stuff about my work this round, I do look at it as a positive. I'm just really just joking.
I re- I remember, I think it was 2 sessions live previous to when we started this, so it was probably a little while ago. But you guys had done, as I described it, like a bust of a geisha, and you guys were building it from black.
Yes, that was difficult.
And I was like, oh, and then I jumped in on that chat to say hello, and I had forgotten at the pace that you move and your group moves, Bobby. So I was like, hey, this looks like fun. And you're like, hey, Eric's in the chat. Do you think maybe we can invite him to be one of these things? And I'm like, I would love it. And in my head, I was like, that's a month down the line, you know, like, you know, that may or may not happen. And it was like the moment you signed off, I get the email. It's like, hey, do you want to do this? I'm like, I have no time to prepare mentally, emotionally, skill set, and craft wise to do one of those geisha paintings to be anywhere near as relevant as what was happening when I was watching, you know? But I was like, screw it. It's just going to be fun.
That's what we love about you. Hop right
Yeah,
in.
that was really fun to watch though. I was like, oh my gosh, this looks so good. The reference was really super, I thought was like super interesting. The challenge was super interesting. So
Yeah.
I had my brain in that space to be like, oh, we're going to be using painting, you know, that thing, right?
Yeah. Well,
And then
and
when you said, we're going to do this Mindy Lee thing, I was like, you're killing me, Bobby.
I was thinking, yeah, well, you know, we gotta spice it up and keep Eric
No, it was
challenged.
great.
You know.
It was great.
Yeah, and another total failure, by the way, for me, what is tomorrow's. You could see how Massey totally kicks butt tomorrow, by the way, and our guest, Carla Ortiz, like I was saying.
Wow.
This was intimidating. I love her. She's one of my good friends, but yeah, her chops at not just digital but oil painting. Look at that oil paint. Is that oil painting? I don't even know. No, that's sorry.
Digital.
That's digital. But
yeah,
yeah.
her stuff amazing. In tomorrow's challenge, you get to see her like paint. It's almost like as if she's painting an oil painting. So it was really neat to watch. Like there's times when I was just like moving my cursor but watching her paint. I mean, I did it with Eric. I was like, I'm gonna make it look like I'm drawing, but I'm just gonna watch what he's doing. But yeah, it's definitely a treat tomorrow.
You did
She's a
awesome
wonder.
tomorrow, Miss
Ah.
A. That's such a weird sentence. You did awesome tomorrow. But you totally did. Yeah, I wish I could do that one again. I would do it so differently. But I digress.
But there's
Let's-
value to that, right, Bobby? Where
Oh,
you're
for sure.
like, we talk about mistakes, we
For
talk
sure.
about, you know, all the things that the critical things that we see as we're doing the pieces. But I think integral to growth is what you just said right now, which is like you went through the experience, you bumped into a couple of things, if not directly ran headlong into it. But then you take a step back and go like, I learned something from that. I think I could probably do that differently. It'd probably be more successful in my head if I did X, Y, and Z, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, speaking of calling people out, hello, Nikolai Lockertsen, in the chat there, my friend. If you ever want to join us, we would love to have you. I know you usually use Procreate, but if we want to see Nikolai join us for the next, for a future 90-minute art challenge, give us some heart emojis, everybody. All right.
Oh my gosh. And prepare yourself, because if you answer yes, you're gonna be on like tomorrow. Like right now, you're gonna be on. You're gonna get that email from Bobby and crew to be like, you want to come on right now? Just prepare yourself.
No, you know what? We totally packed our schedule, so this would be for next year, I think.
In a few weeks.
Yeah, but that would be great. We also have Zach Retz coming on to paint with us in the future as well as Ergo Josh from Ergo Josh
Right
on.
on.
YouTube. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
And Cynics, by the way, I
And
just saw that. I don't know who else, but hearts are coming, people. Hearts are coming. All right, Nikolai. Sorry, buddy.
I guess you're committed, Nikolai.
Yeah, you can't run away.
Expect that invite for 2021.
Anybody in Discord want to join in on any conversation here?
You're safe to unmute your mics.
I think we're all just like trying to keep up.
Oh.
Keep up. Can I-
That is a good point, right? Like whereas before there was no ticking clock. Right now you said 90 minutes and everybody's like, hey, I'm going to utilize every last second of this 90 minutes to get this done, which is awesome.
By the way, Nikolai just said yes.
There you go.
All right.
Yay.
Thanks, Nikolai. Yay. I hope I didn't pressure you too much, but I'm glad you said yes. Ha 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 ha.
Thanks, everyone.
I got to
Thanks,
see
everyone.
Nikolai painting during Lightbox Expo, and it's so freaking cool.
Oh.
Yeah, I wonder if that's your regular kind of method, Nikolai, but yeah, it was very, very cool. Very opaque. Everything was very, very opaque. Yeah, it's neat. All right, any other kind of things we want to talk about in the chat there? Otherwise,
It's fun.
Oh, okay, yeah, go for it.
I was gonna say, like, it's fun sort of watching it as it's happening, and we're not, at least me personally, I'm not involved in actually drawing it, you know? Where I go like, Oh my gosh, it's as close to an out of body experience as I can get to watching that thing come together. Where right now, as I'm looking at it, I'm looking at that hand that I have yet to render. I'm like, get to the hand. That's bugging the heck out of me that you haven't come up with, at the very least, the structure for how that hand is going to work. Don't leave it last minute, because that's what people look at, you know?
Oh, crap. I love how, by the way, Storm's Legacy says, say yes to the stress. Directed at Nikolai.
This is true.
On.
Yeah, it's such a weird experience, kind of like watching yourself do all this stuff, especially like from, I don't know when we recorded this, maybe it was a week and a half ago, but it's like you kind of learn at the same time, right? Or at least I feel like I've learned, like, okay, I did it this way, and then maybe I should do it next time like this way, because I know that this part, like, I get to really quickly, so might as well work on something that's a bit more challenging.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's kind of like how I learned to like watch these videos, because Bobby, you do a lot of recordings and then you do like sped up paintings on your YouTube. And normally I don't do this until we started the 90-minute challenge, so I feel like there is benefit in recording these kinds of stuff, like, for people.
Yeah.
And like Procreate does that very nicely, where it's very easy to, you know, play back your painting.
Do you use Procreate, Eric?
Yeah, almost exclusively these days.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, especially now for this, I'm doing all the comic book pages in Procreate.
Now, I know,
Cool.
for your quote-unquote day job, you know, you manage people, right? You don't have to, you're not just an artist, but you're a lead and you manage people. Can you kind of explain further about like what your job entails?
Yeah. And as you say it, as the words were coming out of your mouth, you're like, you don't necessarily get to paint anymore. You lead people. And I'm like, my heart is breaking. I'm like shriveling into it.
Hey, that's something that if that's the thing, then that's what we have in common as well. So I feel your pain. Like, you got to find those moments.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. But it's also in the best way possible, because I think I look at the crew that I work with, each and every single one of them are just like, I refer to them as like heat-seeking missiles, right? They are target and objective oriented, and they're just looking to destroy the assignment that gets put in front of them. And I remember being in their space, at least if not like mentally, but also career-wise. I remember being in that similar space with them when I first started in the industry, or in the, you know, being a professional, and not having the resources of mentorship and good leadership in place to help me understand what my growth potential looks like. And if there's anything that I try to really double down on, is to help I'm typically not the administrative kind, but when it comes to helping other artists out, especially the artists that are on my team, I really try to focus on like, okay, my job is all these other things as well, but what's most important to me is helping to guide and mentor these, I call them all kids, right? Because they are. I'm like an old man. I can guide the kids into a space in which they get better at their craft, but also get better at their job, which isn't just drawing, which is also helping to align teams, helping to sort of, doing something creative and not just regurgitate pre-existing things that are out there, you know? Really sort of hold them accountable to the stuff that they put on their pieces, and say, you know, hey, why isn't this consistent? There's a thing that you did here 2 pieces ago that would really help, really put the best kind of polish on this new piece, or elevate this new piece into a better space. Those kinds of things are what I take pride in when I'm helping to run that team. As far as what I do, somebody just explained this to me the other day, because I was in a meeting. Somebody explained to me what my job was,
That's
or at least my
awesome.
title.
That's funny.
We were we were in a room and they were like, everybody introduced themselves, kinds of things in a conference call. And I said, like, you know, hi, my name is Eric Canete, and I'm an artist on the world building team. And there was like a dead quiet, because 2 or 3 people previous to me were, and it was like it was a leadership call. So the explanation of who they were and context to the job that they do there was not prolonged, but definitely more specific. And when I said, like, I'm an artist on the world building, the head of my department was like, Eric is a principal artist and also a lead of the world building team. And somehow that made more sense to the person who I was saying to, because I think they had this look on their face like, you're an artist and then you're on this leadership call. And so when my lead said it, they're like, oh, makes a lot of sense. Right. Okay.
Well, you know,
And so I was like, oh, that's great. I'd never thought of myself as that. I just thought of myself as an artist on the team, not a principal artist for the company, and definitely not as a lead on the world building team.
I was thinking that maybe you kind of were doing so many different things that it's hard for you to define it, right? Like I have such a issue now with bios. You know, it's just like one sentence. I'm like, all right, I'm an artist. Hi. That's it.
For my own self-preservation, I think I like simplifying what my job is, because if somebody were to, as they did that in that call, sort of help to really highlight everything, it gets overwhelming for me. Like, oh God, those are all my responsibilities. That's right. You know, but if I just say I'm an artist on the team, first, it keeps me humble, which I really take a good stock in. And then secondly, it prevents me from getting overwhelmed of what that title means.
So when somebody really wants to work on your team and wants to know what your biggest pet peeves are, what should they avoid doing?
Oh, pet peeves. What do I have a pet peeve for? I don't, and this is not a criticism on an industry, but I think there's because I know why there's a reason for it. Like, you see what's out there in the art of books, and people have a natural tendency to, oh, this is really super hypercritical, and I don't mean it to come off that way, but people have a tendency to copy and paste the things that are working because they're under the preconceived notion that it's the thing that's going to get them the job if there's somebody that's brand new to the industry. And that makes a lot of sense, right? That has a lot of, like, as far as the math is concerned, that makes sense. But it doesn't help me understand your thought processes behind the piece. What it does is it helps me understand that you took somebody else's thought processes and incorporate it into your piece. So to me, in as far as what the prerequisites are for the team that I run, that makes you a person that can do a polish on something, but it doesn't give me an idea of how well you think through a problem.
Are you saying that it's like you want to see the thought process, you want to see the sketches that lead to the final thing, and that's the thing that generally is missing because everybody feels like they need to just hand you in polished stuff like from an art of book?
That I think it's a little bit more step. So as we're working on, I'll give you a broadish problem set. Like, as I'm working on the world building team, and if we focus on a faction, right? Let's say, I'll put it in real world terms. Like, I want you to design a chair that's from France, right? That's a region specific design nuance. Somebody will just go like, okay, but there's a chair from France, and I'll design a chair based off of that. What they don't infuse it with is the cultural nuance of what helped to inform the design of that chair as you've come to have an understanding for it now, right? So the thinking is not to do more chairs that make sense for how we have an understanding for. You have to think of it in the cultural nuance that led to that design so that you can come up with something unique for yourself, not to regurgitate a pre-existing idea.
I see. So just to clarify, it's like if the assignment is, hey, paint a bird lady, jellyfish, kind of chromy kind of thing, you don't go to one of our pieces to kind of take as the reference. You go
Exactly.
to those photos that we
Exactly.
had.
Right. Right. You kind of have a clear understanding, and at least in this, let's say using your example, to be like, why does that work for the thing that I'm doing? What is that helping to inform? And on the world building team, that has a lot to do with culture. So in a more job specific thing, if we were to go into a sub faction in the world of like League of Legends, we have a tendency to go like, okay, this is a, there are archetypes in that world. So here's one that's like knights, here's one that's barbarians, here's one that's pirates, here's one that's, you could just as easily turn in something. At least this happened to us in the beginning. We were just as genuinely guilty of this exercise, of this execution, as anybody else. You would come up with piratish stuff, but it didn't come from a nuanced cultural understanding of that society, of that people. So it just turned out to be everything else that you've seen from Pirate Town. You could go to the Pirates of the Caribbean ride and be like, oh, look, pirates, and you infuse it with pirate stuff and you go like, job done. Cool, but that looks like everybody else's IP. The thing that's missing is a cultural understanding of where these people have come from. And we really take a lot of stock and pride into that. So to answer your question, what do I want to see? I want you to have a clear understanding of the thing that you're designing for and what did you do as an additive to that thing as opposed to the copy and paste version of it.
And by the way, how many people in the chat there actually play League of Legends, like League of Legends? Give us a thumbs up. I'd love to see, like, because I know this game is crazy popular.
Is it a big game? I don't know if it's a big game. Is it a big game?
I used to play it, but I was never very good at it.
Oh, you and me both.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, I have no idea. Yes, question. Go for it.
Sorry. I would like to ask which region of League of Legends you think is the best designed?
Oh, God. If I say one specific region, each team member on the world building team has been assigned a region. It's sort of their stock interest, even though we have a cursory knowledge, a working knowledge of each other's regions, as far as like, should somebody need to be embedded because it's a big ask from a team, from a product team, and we have to tackle it as a collective. We want to be just as informed as everybody else on how to tackle that region. But oftentimes there's a specific member of the team that's the point person. And if I say that's my favorite region and this video gets back to them, it's going to be hell to pay. So I have like kids, and it's basically what you're asking me is like, which one is your favorite kid? And I'm like, oh.
Okay, how about which one is your favorite kid right now?
Right.
No, just kidding.
I'll tell you what I had an attachment for, because one of the first regions that I tackled going into Riot, before I was put in the position that I am in now of running the team, I was a concept artist on the world building team, and I saw the art that was being developed for a region called the subfaction called Mount Targon. And in its initial presentation, it was forgive the term, but it was like more of the same. It was effectively like Mount Olympus and the pantheon of gods, and all the tropes that are built into that. So Roman columns and gold filigree all over the place. When my lead asked me, which one of these do you want to tackle, I gravitated towards that, because I was like, I think we can do something more nuanced. I think that we can do something a bit more unique, not necessarily not exclusive to our IP, but I think there's something more unique than just doing, Zeus and Hades and blah blah blah, right? Even though at its core that was the inspiration for that space. and so when I tackled that, that's really what I set out to do, which is to give something that was IP unique. And so my heart is still in that space, even though I've since even though those responsibilities of building out that IP has gone to a very, very talented very sort of a capable artist by the name of Maisie Yang, and she just, if whatever I did with that region, Maisie just like, just trebucheted all the way to the stratosphere. She is not only an amazing person to hand the baton to, but her additive skills to what is pre-existing and go like, we have this term on the team, which is, wouldn't it be cool if, right? Even though oftentimes it scares a lot of different product owners, but I love that. And Maisie has one of the best wouldn't it be cool ifs muscles that she's developed.
That's, yeah, I could relate. That's great.
You want those people on your team, man.
No, totally,
like
totally.
you want somebody who's like, I think I run pretty fast, and you hand the baton and they're shot out of a gun and you're like, whoa, I thought I run fast. That person runs fast.
Yeah, it's like those, and it's very few that are skilled enough to do this properly, but it's just like you ask them, hey, do you like A or B? And then they go, no. What about C? Up
Right.
here. And you're like, oh,
right.
shoot. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then you do it.
Yeah,
And you're like, dang.
I love those people, man. I love having those on the team because their ability to like take like this sort of mental snapshot of things and just distill the idea, capture the spirit of it, and then just escalate it to something that I wouldn't have thought of on my own because I already have my own isms, right? I love being on a team like that. And I know I've helped to highlight Maisie Yang, but each single member of the team is just as capable. And what's great is that they're all at certain levels of their career. So from like senior to mid-level to junior, each of them have built up that muscle to be like, yeah, cool. It's strange what we have to train out of them, especially when there's a brand new person that we're onboarding, is just the idea of like assignment fulfillment. Because assignment fulfillment puts you into a mental space of wanting to do the safest thing in order to be able to say, isn't that immediately usable? And safe is a scary concept because it has a tendency to homogenize not just this thing that you're drawing, but because you're developing it for an IP, it has a tendency to spider web outwards to multiple products. And if you think you've turned in a homogenized thing, imagine what it's like when it's been telephoned out to different people and now they're taking your thing and they're trying to sort of like deconstruct it so it's immediately applicable to their product. So you've taken this is a bad example, but so forgive me, but you've taken this thing that's already at 50% and now you're giving it to somebody and they're distilling it even more. And imagine what the percentage is by the time they're using it on their product. That's a super scary thing to me.
Or maybe the thing that started it was the wrong path to begin with.
Sure.
Like,
for sure.
Oh shoot, this oil over here, we can burn this oil. Oh wow, hey, we can make energy out of this oil. And other people come and they go, yeah, I could power this with this
100%.
oil. And somebody else goes, yeah,
100%.
with that, and and so on and so forth. And you start going down this path of like utter destruction.
Absolutely.
Something that comes to mind is social media nowadays, like with
Yes.
these algorithms, with the comments, with the whatever. It definitely seems like the wrong model that started this giant mess of like toxicness and separation.
But to be fair, it's hard to sort of be that predictive of what it'll transform into.
For sure.
Right? The intent could have been genuine and good, quote unquote. Like it could have been just it didn't have a built-in alignment, right? They saw the good that was behind it, to your point, like social media and like fossil fuel. But by the time it gets down the path, you kind of go like, there was no way we could have predicted it would turn into this.
Well, Twitter was never meant to be Twitter.
Right.
Right? And it wasn't supposed to be telling you the news. It was just
Absolutely.
supposed to be like, oh, this is what I'm doing now. I'm having lunch
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. It's your place to go to for quote unquote truth. And you're like, that is irresponsible.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yes.
I would love to hear from everybody's point of view, but what do you think makes a character design a good design? And specifically for Eric, what makes a character design a good design from a Riot point of view?
Yeah, especially because you guys have so many different styles. It's like,
Yeah,
what are you supposed to do?
I want to be respectful to every team that has had a contribution to the player understanding of our IP, because I don't want to say, like, from the Riot's point of view, it's this, because each team will have an answer for that, especially because, and more importantly, they have a more keen understanding of what our player base looks like, our audience looks like. I can speak to it from a world building perspective, right? What makes for a good character design? It's rare that we handle a character in specific. We'll handle people in specific, right? Because the characters in and of themselves are representative of that people, and based on that nuance, they make the champion's version of that people, of that society. So from a people point of view, we are aiming to make that thing distinct and tells of the region that they come from. The bad version is you will know when somebody lives in California because they have a tendency to wear clothes that are a little bit lighter, as opposed to somebody who lives in like a super cold climate like Toronto, and a even more harsh climate like, Antarctica, like those. That's an easy sell visually. The nuance is it now starts to distill down into shape language, right? That shape language is informed by region, informed by history, informed by culture. What makes for a cool character design on world building is you can tell the difference between those peoples, right? And even in there's a region in the IP called Ionia, and Ionia is such a huge continent that their biomes differ from the south to the north to the coastal areas, and yet we still have to infuse it with enough cultural nuance that you understand they're from that region. Only within that region they're in that specific coast or they're in that specific biome. So to us, if you can look at a character and go like, that's a Western Ionian character, that's a job well done. Does that make sense? Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Thank you so much.
Cool.
What about you, Masay? What really clicks with you with character design? What makes a good character design? Do you have any criteria that you look at?
I guess like how Eric was talking about nuances, that I think that plays a big part. It's like it's very easy for people to kind of like look at stuff that has been already done and know that it works, and then they take like that as reference without actually like doing more reference on like regions, cultures, places, and kind of infusing that into it. So when I see things that are just like, oh, I feel like they don't really understand it, then it kind of like takes me out of that like world that they're trying to build. I think, okay, this is like one of my pet peeves, but when I see people who do like Japanese character designs, one thing I always look for is the way the kimono is like folded on top of each other, because one way is very different from the other. So like if the fold is left down first, then right on top, then that's actually for people who passed away, and then the other way is for like for the normal people who are living, I guess. So it's like small things like that. It just makes me feel like, okay, like I understand like they want to make a world, like characters from that world, but if they don't do certain types of research, it just doesn't feel like they're really building a person from that world. So
yeah,
to me, that's like pretty important.
What about you, Bobby?
I'm always thinking about my favorite characters in movies and such, and it's like they're the ones that make you think after the movie or after the game. You think about how they are, you think about what they said, and maybe it changes you. right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, not just animated stuff, but like after watching Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith and him just going through the crap that he had to go through, you know, being homeless and sleeping in a bathroom, like a public bathroom for a night and stuff, and then working his way to becoming a lawyer, or I think he was a lawyer. No, finance person, I think. I you know what? For a movie that I like so much, I can't remember the guy's freaking job, but the thing that sticks with me is how he got through it and the attitude that he had and how he poised himself, and changes me, right? Keanu Reeves has changed me many times because he's just so awesome. But and then Yoda is probably the biggest one. The things that he says, like, you know, you think about it, and you can really, really think about it for a long time too. Just that.
Yeah.
What was that one? You know, there is no try, there is only do, or whatever. You know, he says it in his way.
Right.
That's awesome. You know.
Yeah. That's profound.
Yeah. But of course, all of these things need to have appeal and you know, clarity and weight and all these other things, and good animation, good movement for you to still be in that illusion and connect with that character. If it's bad animation, I can't connect with it like,
Right.
at all.
That takes you out of it. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting, using the Yoda example, is that in his inception, he was puppeteered, which is for sure animated, quote unquote, but it did have its limitations, right? But it goes to show that in like a master craftsman's hand, you forget, right? And then you fast forward to you know, in the incarnation of him that was purely CG, and somehow
doesn't look
the wall goes the wall goes up, you know.
Yeah.
There's this weird disconnect to that character, not necessarily because it's CG, maybe, I don't know, but maybe because, and I was theorizing this when I first saw it, I was like, there's a missing nuanced hand that is not Frank Oz that's animating this character, that has an understanding of it from Frank Oz's performance, not because they themselves understand how to animate this character, you know? So all the fancy bells and whistles that's attached to this CG construct is primed for the best sort of performance, but without the person behind it who has like a really keen understanding of what that makes that character work. There's like this weird I'll speak for myself, there was this weird disconnect for me.
What, you know, yeah, what is that? You know, I kind of feel like, because like the Baby Yoda, you know, the actor is holding this little Baby Yoda and super cute or whatever. It's obviously it's fake, but there's something there about knowing that he is actually holding that physical puppet and pretending like it's real. Makes it so much more connected than when I know that it was probably just a tennis ball and dude is looking at a tennis ball, you know?
Yeah, that's a great
right?
point, because I think, you know, acting, you know, from my understanding of like friends who have been actors, they take a lot out of, they put into so much of the performance and take a lot from the thing that the person that they're acting with, right?
Yeah.
So I think that there's an opportunity there for them to project onto the scene when there's something that's tangible, right? There's an elevated sort of skill that they must take on when they're having to act against a CG thing or a tennis ball, as you said. But it's like, you know, the fact that there's a puppet, or there's like this tangible physical thing that the actor can grab onto, the Baby Yoda, I think there's a way to sort of like project onto that this feeling of like whatever the scene calls for, as opposed to like, look at this tennis ball, you know, like I have to grab this tennis ball and caress it and, you know, feel that I love it. Like there's this great scene in Jurassic Park where Sam Neill is laying on that there was a bladder laying on the Triceratops, and there's a bladder inside of it that's allowing it to breathe in and out because it was feeling sick. And I don't know how you could do that scene with a CG anything. Like if it was a green screen bulb, and he had to lay on top of it and like pretend that it was sick, and he could hear it breathing and it was gurgling or whatever. Like I just, it was really smart of them to build the Triceratops in practically and have it breathe.
And like thinking about what the actor goes through, like they get on set, they see this big, beautiful, giant freaking dinosaur that all these people
For sure.
made, and it moves and stuff, right? That
Yeah.
all of a sudden, like I feel excited just thinking about that. Like, oh, I get to act in front of this thing, right? That sounds
Yeah,
fun.
for
Or
sure.
like we're all dressed as wizards and dwarves and all this stuff, and we're gonna run through this forest, and all these other guys that are dressed as orcs are gonna chase us. Man,
Right.
right? You would get so
That's
into
awesome.
it.
Yeah, because I would think, not being an actor, but I would think that it just adds that extra layer of reality and motivation for you. Like same movie with Jurassic when they made the T-Rex head on the giant crane. They had that as a point of reference on set to go like, holy crap, that thing is huge, and
That's why that
it's
first
like a
one.
giant chainsaw of teeth.
That's why that first one still holds up big time.
I agree.
And
I
also
agree, man.
the wonderful mix between practical and CG. That's where it's at, right?
I think that's the formula in which if you can dictate it in reality, right? If you set the tone in reality and supplement it with CG, I think that's when you get sort of the best performance. Not necessarily the best movie, because I don't know, but I think the best performance from the people who are involved.
So, in many ways, actors, they design their characters just like how we design characters. So what is the
Sure.
most kind of optimal situation for us as character designers to do the best that we can do? I know it might be different for, the two of you, but what do you think? Any thoughts on that?
I don't. Let me think. I guess it's got to be a case by case basis, because I can't imagine design. I was just talking to somebody about this the other day in regards to the sustainability of character design as I'm applying it in comics versus the sustainability of a character design as I'm applying it to a feature film, right? Like I was using Captain America as a point of reference. Like looking through the art books, Andy and team designed like this buckle that has a rivet, and that buckle has a star, and that star has a plate, and that plate has a texture. But I can't imagine drawing that over and over and over and over again without breaking my hand off at the end of X amount of pages, right? So there's motivation and nuance in designing for a practical, doing a character design for a practical thing, as opposed to doing a character design for a comic book that needs to read immediately. You understand the character, part of the character story through its design. Captain America is a perfect example. You put like the flag on a dude, and he's got a shield as opposed to a sword. You understand that concept immediately, right? Shield is defense, red, white, and blue, the American flag, right? You get that story so quickly, and then you transfer that into the live action version of them. Shield still needs to be there because that's legacy. Red, white, and blue still needs to be there because that's legacy. But then you start adding stuff onto it. So you design it so it looks like a soldier's costume, because that makes a lot of sense. He is a soldier. And you design it with materials with the practicality of the real world in mind. So the helmet, the chin strap, the belt, the pouches, those are all real world things that don't need to be in the comic book.
What's the kind of optimal situation for you, Miss A, for optimal creativity with character design?
I don't know if I have an answer for that. Do you have?
It's a
thoughts
tough
on
one.
that,
I didn't ask it thinking of an answer in mind. I definitely love when the director knows what he or she wants, because there's lots of times where it's like they all they know is they want you to do it. What is it? I'm not sure. I'll know when I see it. You know,
Ouch.
it's like, is this character old or young? And I've actually asked this, and this is a real life scenario where it's like, okay, how old is this character? Is he an old character, 50, 60, 70, 80? Or is he a younger character, 14, 15, 16? And the person's like, yeah, could be. That was the answer. You know, it's like,
Could be was the answer.
yeah.
That's
so
scary. That's scary space.
that's very difficult. It's very difficult to get.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a 40-year time gap that you have to accommodate in your designs.
right? Is it a creature? Is it a like a humanoid kind of creature, or like a creature that doesn't, doesn't have that kind of intelligence, perhaps, or whatever? Not
Right.
sure
Oh.
yet. Not sure yet. Or they
Oh, blue sky.
yeah. Oh, that's like the worst. And it's funny because I think the only time I've ever heard that where it's like, oh, you're gonna love this, total blue sky right now, do whatever. I
Yeah.
only heard that once, and it's like that was also a very difficult situation.
Yeah. Yeah. So parts of my experience with Blue Sky, even though it's sort of like conceptually this open space, there's still caveats built into place,
Hopefully, yeah.
But we definitely term limit Blue Sky, where it's like we have X amount, now we need to start whittling it down, because Blue Sky for too long, you don't know what's right or wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's some of my funnest times, though. Opposite to you, when we're in blue sky space, especially because I love playing the "Wouldn't it be cool if" game. But then at some point, when we need to go into like production, it's like, okay, enough of that. Somebody start telling me, somebody start putting stakes in the ground, so we know whether or not we are dead center of target or we're completely off.
Hey, for your comic book, Eric, are you the one that's coming up with the story as well?
Yep.
How is
And that's why I
that
tried to make it as
process for
simple
you?
as possible.
Right, like how is that process for you? And what I mean by this is, like, some people, especially professional writers that gotta write, they just go until the thing is done. But
Yeah.
then for me, and for a bunch of creators I've heard before and things, they'll have an idea. They'll have like 7 different ideas, and they will be working them all at the same time and see which one gets the runway first. And many
Yeah.
of these, it's like these ideas have to percolate for a long time, like a stew, before they'll bring it
Yeah,
out.
that's valid. Yep.
What's your which one do you kind of connect with the most?
I see the value of doing both, which is like thinking about the idea for a while, seeing how it works, and all those kinds of things. I think there's value in that, but there's also, just especially once you start going into this production space, I had to pick one, and I had to pick the one that I believed would keep me working, motivated, and zoned in, right? Because ultimately that's what's super important when I'm running a marathon as opposed to like a sprint. I had to think of it in such a way where I'm like, based on this idea, I want to keep working on it 5 months from now, 6 months from now.
Eric, I want to
Right.
get a little bit more specific because, that's what I do. When you are working this out, is it
Yeah.
all in written word, or is it
Yeah.
with visuals?
Yeah.
Or
No, it's all in written word, but what I do is like the old school Marvel version of the script, where I bullet point what's happening through the issue. So in this case, it's going to be like issue per issue, 5 issues long, right? And so I bullet point what happens in the first issue all the way through issue 5, and I say like, okay, this is what's going to lead me into this big third act climactic battle between good guy and bad guy. But it's not a full script because I don't have the heart for it to be. I don't have like the patience to be like, and then Joe says, "You're a bad guy, and I need to fight you."
Interesting.
I understand the theme of it. I understand the things that need to be said. And so I'm a little bit more deliberate about like leaving space for those bubbles, those conversations. I understand the themes of the conversation when they're doing their walk and talk, as I just lay out as much narrative for the audience as possible. So I leave space for those bubbles. But the specifics of the dialogue, unless I know for sure I need to land that thing, I rarely write it down. Like there's a few lines that I'm clear about, like, okay, they say this because that's a turning point for the story. So they need to say these set of words specifically.
Wow. And look at that. We're all done. What great timing.
Hey.
Holy smokes.
Before-
Fast.
What a challenge.
Amazing.
Let me
I also, sorry, Bobby, to interrupt. I wanna. There's like a person in. I'm waiting so patiently to ask questions. So
okay.
is it possible?
Sure, yeah. Then I gotta run. Or...
Oh, hey, sorry. Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask, because you mentioned for my job.
That's a translation.
No
for,
worries.
Spanish.
I muted the person.
Yeah, you said for your job, you don't really get to draw very much. And I just wanted to ask, like, for those of you who've gotten promoted or moved into those positions, like, why? If you only want to be an artist.
We didn't catch the last part.
The last part clipped out, yeah.
Oh, like, why did you take the position where you didn't get to draw very much? Like, did you just move on, or needed the money, or, you know, sort of thing?
It's a wonderful question.
Well, you have way more
In my
influence
case, in my case, I'll speak very frankly, and I know Bobby's got to get out of here, so I'll try to make this as short as possible. But in my case, it was because there was a team need, and that I knew I could be the most impactful in this space. So it's not for the longing of drawing. I just had to think of another way to sort of scratch that itch of drawing. So I do that on the side now. And in the meantime, as my 9 to 5, I try to help as many of these artists get better at their jobs.
Fantastic. Masay, when are we streaming with Carla tomorrow? Do you remember?
Tomorrow at, I believe, 3 p.m. Eastern time and 12 p.m. Pacific time.
Fantastic. So come back for another 90-minute art challenge tomorrow, where we have the incredible Carla Ortiz joining us. Holy smokes, get ready. As for today, I just want to thank our wonderful audience, everybody in Discord, our moderators in Discord, Jamie in Facebook and YouTube, and my co-host Masay Seki, and then the biggest shout out goes to my buddy, the amazing, incredible Eric Canete. Thanks, Eric. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Bobby. Thanks, Masay.